Thanks so much, Mark.
Hello, Cheryl and Curtis. So glad you're here today. Oh, I lost Curtis. That's all right. There's a lot of great things going on. I can understand. We're going to be starting in 5 minutes, Cheryl. We're really glad you're with us. Oh, good. And we do have chat going, which is great. And it's Deborah. Hey, Deborah. How are you?
I just want to make sure you got everything you need. You're all set?
It's looking great. We got chat. I've got it says I'm sharing to this session. I don't see it in the Google Zoom events, but I feel like I have everything set up perfectly correctly.
Okay, let me just see. You are people can live stream or preview your session in the lobby right now for sure.
All right.
Oh, okay, if you need anything, chat me on Google and have a great session.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Okay, bye.
Bye. So Cheryl, where do you teach? Oh, so I'm not quite sure. You're happy to hit this ask to unmute, maybe you'll get a pop-up. But you can type in the chat too. Any way you want to participate is fine. We're going to be talking about UDL. So if you want to chat, if you want to unmute, whatever gets past your barrier, that is the best way to join. Welcome for those just joining us. We're going to get started in a little bit. Oh, awesome. Whoa, fantastic. How's what do you teach at Yikwo? Oh, nice. Second grade. One of my first jobs in the district, I wasn't part of SFUSD, but I was doing second grade extended day teaching at Leonard Flynn. And it was, I've only done middle school since then, but I do miss my second graders. Welcome all those people. Welcome Sue, welcome David, welcome Kayla. Get started in a moment. I'm waiting for my moderator. I will say, just as a heads up, if you're just kind of investigating the session, this is kind of focusing on pedagogy, not just using the tools. I think it will be valuable for everyone to think about how we can use these tools, but I'll be spending more time thinking about UDL assessments than I will be kind of explaining exactly how to build Jamboards and Google quizzes. If you do like this session and but you feel like technologically it's like a lot coming at you, I do have a session later on assignments that will kind of create that backend. Kathleen, glad you're here. Kathleen will be our moderator today. She'll be watching the chat. Kathleen, did you get the moderator document? Do you have that?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Great, fantastic. So I just have the links to drop in when we get through.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'll wait another about like 2-3 minutes, I think, just to see that people can get in if they want. If anyone has any questions about what will be covered, just if they're trying to decide if this is the right session for them, I'm happy to answer that. If people want to just say something they're hoping to learn today overall, I'd love to know. We're always curious to know what is most valuable to teachers. Does anyone get the on-screen prize? That's all right. That's all right. I know it's early in the year to start. So, oh, is Luann going on screen? Nope. Nope. All right. That's fine. I'll be fine. So thank you all for joining us. We'll start in a few minutes. For those of you who are just coming in the room, I'm going to repeat what I said is that my plan for this session is really to think about all the ways we can use our best pedagogical practices with Google tools, meaning that I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining how to do Jamboard quizzes and forms. We're going to go through it as if we were students and talk about the experiences. But if you are interested in learning, but it might feel like things are coming like fast and like you might want to be like, hey, I need to know how to do this though. I do hope you stick around. I think it will still be valuable, but if you can keep all those questions and come to our Google assignments, which will be after lunch, where I'll go through some more detailed step-by-step, how do you actually put this in practice? But this is kind of a big picture look at what, if we know everything we can do with these tools, what can we put together to make a really high quality learning experience for our students? So if you're just a beginner and might feel overwhelming, just stick with it. I'm going to ask you to pretend like you're a student. You won't have to make anything, and you can just kind of think, what could be possible in my classroom? And if you're old hat, hopefully this will be something that will be really exciting to think about new ways, or maybe it's things you already do, and then it confirms. You're like, yes, I am a very smart teacher. I know how to do this stuff. Either way, we are glad you're here. And we're going to start in 1 more minute. Just do that tech check-in, mute yourself. We're going to be mostly using chat, except key times when I'll ask people to unmute. Camera on or off is absolutely your choice, although it always is helpful for me to see what people are reacting, how people are reacting. Shannon is getting the camera on prize. Thank you so much, Shannon, for winning the camera on prize. Glad to see you. But please make sure you do open up and locate the chat window. This will be very interactive. You will be doing technology assessments as if you were a student, and you will need to access the links that Kathleen will be dropping into the chat. I'll also have the links written on the screen, and I'll also have a QR code so you can join with your phone. Sometimes that's easier. Just if you don't have 2 screens at your desk, it became kind of easier to try and do the assignment on the phone. I will say it might be also tricky to do the assignment on the phone too, but I want to provide multiple options, and we'll talk about why that's important as we go through. And if you would like, you can pull up the slide deck to follow along, but mostly the slide deck is a collection of links to other things we'll be doing. So I don't feel you need to, but I know some people, they're really important to them to have that. So that's there as an option. And then Kathleen, I just wanted to check in. There is some construction going on next door. Is that coming through my audio, or is it pretty clear? Okay.
Pretty clear.
Okay. If it ever gets too much, just let me know and we'll figure out something. Okay, and we'll get started. So my name is Andrew Piper. I'm a teacher on special assignment with DLE. I principally support the high school cohort. And if you ever need any help, if you direct questions to help desk at help.sfusc.edu or call the help desk number, and it's something related to my areas of expertise, they will direct it to me, and I will be happy to come out and help you and figure out how to do it. And my incredible moderator is, and I'm turning it over to you, Kathleen.
I am Kathleen Kennedy. I'm a digital learning integration designer, and I am working alongside Xander this year, supporting the high school cohort.
We're very excited. Kathleen's new this year and she's already absolutely amazing. So our general norms today, type questions into the chat. Kathleen will find good times to interrupt the session, or she'll just respond in chat if there are quick questions. You in Zoom can direct message me or Kathleen. Please direct message Kathleen and not me. I will not be monitoring chat. So if you direct message me, chances are I will not see it because I'll be focusing on the slides. Yes, so, and this is a great, so thank you, Shannon, for demonstrating. She's asking a question and then Kathleen is able to respond and I can keep going. We're gonna stay muted so that others can hear. So if we're not participating, please stay muted. Sometimes that background noise can just happen even if we're not noticing it. It will happen with mine because of the construction very close to me. And then today we're really going to try and think like a student. We're going to ask, how is this experience for me as a student? Do I enjoy this kind of learning? What are the pros and cons of it? Does it feel like it's driving my learning? This style of thinking about professional development as teachers acting like their students and pretending and doing the work we're asking the students to do was introduced to me by an incredible colleague, Maggie Dominguez, who is now working at Mission High School, I believe. And she would always insist that we not just see a slideshow about what we're asking students to do, but we would pull out the paper, get out our pencils and do the work and be like, what is this like for me as a student? What do I learn doing that as a teacher? So I want to credit the amazing Maggie Dominguez with this style of teaching. So we did our opening moves. We're going to frame the idea of assessment, and we're specifically thinking about formative assessment and how it fits into the UDL framework, the Universal Design for Learning framework. And then we're going to do 3 different assignments that I've done in my classroom that I very much enjoyed. They are real things that I have done. I am not going to be one of those teachers who said, and it worked perfectly, and I had no problems with these. There were definite pros and cons to these activities, like any activity. However, I tried them out. I made lots of mistakes the first time, but I definitely kept doing them and kept refining how I did them because I found them to be very valuable and having really great experiences in my classroom. We're going to do the Jamboard read aloud. We're going to do the Google quiz graded self-paced lesson. And then we're going to look at the Google form class reflection. And as a special bonus, we are going to take really quick look at practice sets if we have time. It's a cool new tool. We are just learning it in DLE ourselves, so we didn't feel it was appropriate to bring a whole new session when we haven't really been able to pilot ourselves. But we did want to let teachers know that it's available for use and where to go to get some information if you want to play around with it. And please let us know if you do, because we want to come out and see what you guys are doing. I'm going to pause a little bit if there are any questions or anything, but I think I'm going to be moving on to framing assessment. So unmute or in the chat, answer some of the following questions. All right. So what are ways we assess student learning? This is not, you don't need to get tricky for these ones. I'm trying to warm us up from a cold start. So exit tickets, woo! That's what we're going for. Yeah, just jumping on in there. Thank you so much, Anthony and Shannon. What are other ways we assess student learning? You can unmute or type in chat. Tests.
There were a couple that came to me directly that I think that was on accident, but yeah, quizzes, tests, asking questions verbally.
Good. Awesome. Oh, morning meetings. I really like that one. I was not thinking about that, but that makes so much sense. Very cool. Observations. Great. This is really exciting because sometimes I'm afraid that I go into a room of teachers who have just kind of like a very fixed idea, but I can already tell that there's like a ton of this really exciting way of thinking about expanding the box of what assessments are already. So I'm super excited. Okay. So next question. Why do we assess student learning? So what's the point? And there could be a range of reasons here. We can even throw out some of those. Let me just say, you can put out something that you know that some teachers do, even if you disagree with it. If you're going to try and be a little bit, we'll understand that nothing put in here represents you individually. It might be, measure understanding, differentiate, to pace our lessons, gauge understanding. All right. Form instruction. All right. I love how everyone here is doing like these really awesome ones. I will say that I have seen teachers, I did not do it, but I have seen teachers who use it as a form of punishment sometimes. Or the way they they give a quiz because like, oh, you guys were misbehaving, so we're going to do a pop quiz. Like I have seen stuff like that. So there's lots of different reasons, some of them good, some of them bad. We're going to focus on the good ones. Okay, really quickly, and I'm really challenging someone to try the unmute option. What are the pros and cons of the standard assessments, starting with exit tickets? What is something pro or con about exit tickets? Who's going to be the first to unmute? So I'm not the only voice.
It's a quick way to gauge your understanding.
It's quick. Yeah, pro. It's great. It's quick.
It can also limit students' understanding. They figure they get it and okay, I'm done. I don't need to pay attention to what's after this.
Yeah. Exit, I'm done. Yeah, it's maybe too quick.
It encourages students to participate.
So it reminds students, it's like you will be checked. You need to pay attention all day. Yeah, absolutely. Quizzes, the standard quiz. We're thinking here, think like a multiple choice quiz with 2 long form answers at the end. What are the pros and cons of a multiple choice quiz with a few open-ended, open answer questions at the bottom? Thank you, everyone who's unmuting. There's limits. The quiz only can show so much.
Can be a reflection of their understanding to let you gauge what is still needed to be worked on.
It does. It gives you those like limits of like what still needs to be worked on.
It clearly communicates expectations.
I like that. Quizzes are pretty definite, right? There's not a lot of room for like negotiation. It's like you check the wrong box. That's not the right box. It's clear. I'm going to add one of the cons, of course, though, is it's highly dependent on language. So if it is a student who's struggling with English and it's a math test, are you testing math or are you testing English? And, in the interest of time, I think I'm going to just go to this last one of raised hands. What are the pros and cons of this assessment style of raised hands in the classroom? You're in the middle of direct instruction and you say, can anyone tell me who was assassinated that started World War II?
This only gets the quick thinkers because a lot of students need more time to process.
Pros are the structures, cons, like we heard, quick thinkers. A lot of times you get the same student.
I think a pro is when a student rephrases what you said in their own way, and other kids may understand because of the way the student said it.
Absolutely. Really, really great pro. I'm really glad it changes it into student language. It's so powerful because I talk a certain way and it's not the way my students talk. And it's good to have a student to say it back.
As you mentioned earlier, for English language learners, there might be hesitation to participate.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even just students who are shy, ones who don't feel comfortable speaking out in class, don't want to bring any attention to themselves.
Definitely, yeah. Now we've all had that one student who's so quiet in class, and you're like, could you please raise your hand? You've got such great ideas. All right. So, so we're going to try and keep moving. So one of the things I'm really focusing on is the Universal Design for Learning framework. I really like using frameworks just to kind of give my mind some like parameters, some goals and guidelines. And I use different kinds of guidelines all the time. UDL is one of my favorites. Kathleen is going to drop a link in the chat to CAST, where they do really great work with Universal Design for Learning. And they have, this comes from their webpage, that a great way to really think about how to pull in all learners and see a more complete picture of what they're learning, providing multiple means of engagement, giving students a choice of how they engage in the lesson or in the assessment, giving varied demands of challenges. It's good to give some easy things and some hard things to see, you know, like all different levels that they're at. And developing self-assessment too, right? Having the student really gauge, how are they doing? Providing multiple means of representation. So the way that you give the information out has lots of multiple ways of being seen. Giving different ways of demonstrating information, not just writing on a whiteboard all the time, but also having some visuals, having some audio. We're going to show a lot of that today. Clarifying text, notation, and symbols with multimedia, right? Making sure we're not just relying on our standard notation, and developing transferable skills, right? So that the ways that they're decoding the information is not just for your class, but can be used in other domains and can actually grow how they as an individual are processing the world once they leave your classroom. Whoops, got too soon. And then providing multiple means of action and expression. So both giving the information out to them in varied ways, but also allowing to give their information back to you in varied ways. Giving lots of different ways to respond, navigate your tech, your materials, or lots of different tech supports. Using all the different tools, media and communication that you can successfully do in your classroom with the limited amount of time we have. But also facilitate students directing their own learning and giving them the ability to decide how they're going to show that information back to you. And these are kind of like the big ideas of UDL. So we are going to start with our Jamboard read aloud. And so this is something I did during during distance learning. I was trying to figure out a way to get all the really quiet students that were all camera off, voice off, to see that they were learning. And it was something that I liked so much, I started bringing it into my in-person classrooms. And so basically what it is, I took a Jamboard, and on the background, I put the text of the reading that we were doing. And then I assigned different students different roles for how they had to annotate the text as we read aloud. Because in middle school, there's this big push to include more read alouds, that it is still really important in the middle school level, but it was still really hard for me to see, like, is anyone even really paying attention to me? Does anyone really know what's going on? So this was one way to kind of assess, to see that they're following along, they're making some of these connections. This picture is from my classroom, but we are going to do our own. So if you could join the Jamboard read aloud now, please, I'm pretty sure I got the permissions correct, but it seems like this is always the time that people are like, the document is locked. We're jumping in, we're joining. Okay, so I have a couple different roles, and I am just asking that one person sign up for each one by writing your name on a sticky note or with the pen tool or the text tool next to each one. And we're going to try and make sure that we get one person doing each of these things. So the questioner is going to add a blue sticky note when we come across in the text, a discussion question that can be used later in tomorrow's lesson. We will say, I'm going to say, we're going to start discussion questions, and our questioner is going to set the questions that we'll have a discussion of tomorrow. So it looks like Edna is going to be our questioner. You're going to be dropping in blue sticky notes that are the discussion questions you're coming up with for tomorrow's class. The summarizer, we need a summarizer. They're going to add a 1-sentence summary of each paragraph on a yellow sticky note. So Patricia, oh, okay, you're going to do that. Awesome. We need a connector, someone who's just going to make connections to their personal life. This is fiction. It needs to connect to our personal life. We want one person to show us what it looks like for you to make connections to your own life. And you're going to do that with a green sticky note. The quoter is going to find those really useful quotes that I know we're in 2 weeks. I'm going to show you guys how to quote in your research response papers. And I want someone to kind of help us out when we get there by identifying the best quotes to use when we're doing our literary analysis. The visualizer, this is a fun one, guys. This is someone who's going to make this an illustrated text. They're going to use Google search on their adding an image on Jamboard, and they're going to find an image that connects up to what we're reading. So it kind of comes alive in our minds. It also makes sure we're all thinking about the same thing while we're doing it. And then the word sleuth, they're going to use the highlight tool, and they're going to highlight words that might be good for our word wall. Now, I will just say that this might be one that for us teachers, maybe you're choosing something that you think a 7th grader might not know, but don't worry, just highlighting something, a tricky word, just so we know that it looks right. And each of you are doing this one per slide. I have chunked the text into paragraphs. It looks like I'm looking for a connector and a quoter. Connector and a quoter. Well, maybe what I'm going to do, I'm going to on the fly say, if you find a connection, jump on in with your green sticky notes. And if you see a quote that you think is really great, oh, it looks like Madeline might be our quoter. Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to start. I'm going to read, I have broken this up into paragraphs at a time because I find that students really can benefit from chunking. It's a very short story. It's only 4 paragraphs, it's only 4 paragraphs. So we're on slide 2 of our read aloud. I hope you remember your role. We're going to have to move fast just for the sake of time, but try and jump in there with your stickies and underlines and all those things. But this is The Birthday Party by Catherine Bosch. They were a couple in their late 30s, and they look unmistakably married. They sat on the banquette opposite us in a little narrow restaurant having dinner. The man had a round, self-satisfied face with glasses on it. The woman is fadingly pretty in a big hat. Now, I know that this tool is new to our class, so I'm going to give a little bit of extra think time for people to add their sticky notes, highlights, red boxes. I'm going to just read our paragraph one more time and think of what you can see. Really pay attention to the language. They were a couple in their late 30s. They looked unmistakably married. They sat on the banquette opposite us in a little narrow restaurant having dinner. The man had a round, self-satisfied face with glasses on it, and the woman was fadingly pretty in a big hat. I'm going to jump in with my green connection note. My personal connection. I feel like now all my birthdays are just me and my husband at a restaurant these days. Man, what happened to when we used to go to the zoo? I gotta tell him. I said this year we're going to the zoo. Okay, so it looks like we've got a couple things being posted. We've got banquette highlighted as something maybe to go on our word wall. I'm waiting for our blue discussion question. I know that in the interest of time, don't feel too precious. We can, describe how the author gives us clues about the characters. Awesome, questioner. I don't know who our summarizer is, but on the next one, let's see if we can try and get like a 1-sentence summary of the paragraph. It arrived in the form of a small but glossy birthday cake with 1 pink candle burning in the center. The head waiter brought it in and placed it before the husband. And meanwhile, the violin and piano orchestra played "Happy Birthday to You." And the wife beamed with shy pride over her little surprise, and such few people as there were in the restaurant tried to help out with a pattering of applause. It became clear at once that help was needed because the husband was not pleased. Instead, he was hotly embarrassed and indignant at his wife for embarrassing him. Ah, yes, awesome. Thank you for the visualizer. Dropping in that image. For those of you, actually, that's one I probably should have explained. So if you're in Google Drive, in the insert image, you can go to Google Photos, or no, I'm sorry, not Google Images as search and say one pink candle cake. And you can find, although this, they misunderstood it, but you can see a bunch of pictures and maybe add that to it. All right, we've got some highlights for the red. The violin, awesome. All right. In the interest of time, we're going to keep going. Thank you everyone for moving along. It arrived in the form, wait, did I duplicate a slide? I did. All right. Just going to really quickly take this one out. Thank you for your patience. You looked at him and you saw and you thought, oh, now don't be like that. But he was like that. And as soon as the little cake had been deposited on the table and the orchestra had finished the birthday piece and the general attention had shifted from the man and the woman, I saw him say something to her under her breath, his breath, some punishing thing, quick and curt and unkind. I couldn't bear to look at the woman then, so I stared at my plate and waited for quite a long time. Not long enough though. She was still crying, and when I finally glanced over there again, crying quietly and heartbrokenly and hopelessly all to herself under the gay big brim of her best hat. All right, so we've got some words for our word wall. I love to challenge our questioner or our summarizer to put something in. I think it's great that people are experimenting with some of the different tools. Again, the way I formatted this and the way that I was hoping that we would get through a lot of material really quickly, I didn't explain a lot of how Jamboard works. Obviously, in the classroom, I would have gone through each of those tools. So the highlighter tool is here. I'm going to do yellow. And so it says like curt might be a word to add to our wall. Something punishing, quick and curt. So I highlight it. Whoop. Why is that? Oh, that's the pen. Sorry. That's why. All right. Thank you for our questioner. And oh, great quote. So again, I would explain also the how to do the box is up here. And one of the things you have to do is you have to do the transparent thing, but the oh, now don't be like that. Great visualizer, right? This is of course really great because I have some students in my class who are, they're still struggling to read. This really kind of lets them know what they should be looking for, what they should be seeing, and can be helpful. All right. Okay. Well, that was the activity. That's how, it can go even quicker after you've done it several times with students. So let's just jump on in with some texts and sticky notes. What did you like about this activity from the standpoint of a learner? And then as a standpoint of a teacher, well, actually for both of them, you can do it as learner, experiential learner, or as the teacher running it. What do you like about this activity? And what might you feel like needs to be changed? What might we? What might we change or add for our classroom? Actually, I'm going to say you. What might you change or add for our classroom? Because everyone's classroom is going to be different. So, all right, multiple entry points, visuals, highlighting, summarizing, etc. Okay, everyone can participate. It'd be great if, so for those of you not familiar with it, if you grab a sticky note, I'm going to include some of these. Love that everyone can participate. Oh my gosh, if that is with your finger, I will be so impressed. Please tell me you have
I
a
have an Apple Pencil.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, wow, wow. But still, even I can't drive even with my stylus, I don't write that well. Yes, so norms are established. That is something that for this kind of experience, I took that out. You better believe that I had to spend a couple days where I only had like one paragraph at a time, and I had to say like, hey, 7th graders, stop drawing those things on there. I can see who's drawing those things on there. And I won't tell you what things. If you're a 7th grade teacher, you know it gets drawn on. So you do have to set expectations. Assigning student roles. Yeah, absolutely. I also, one of my strategies was sometimes to put your best foot forward. So I always try and select a group of students who I know who are kind of, a little more ready to jump into a lesson. I have them be my first group as going, but I then make sure everyone gets a chance. But it means a lot when the first time you do something, everyone's on task, everyone's into it. Those students who, it sets the expectation. I don't think it's like letting our best students like take the show. It sets the expectation. This is what our class culture looks like by me selecting a couple students who I know are going to be right with it, right on top of it. And they're going to make us moving forward. So that's my first example that I'm going to give of this kind of using UDL learning. We're going to go to our next one, unless I guess we have a lot of feedback here. Pause a few this, but I know we're about halfway through time. Is that right, Kathleen?
Yes.
Yeah. We've got 2 other activities to get to, and the second one takes the longest. So are there any questions about how to set this up or anything like that? Or
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we have an unlimited amount of Jamboards? Because I ran out of them. I used them all 2 years ago. I tried to get a new one last year and I didn't have any space. How does that work?
with
Are you
Jam,
talking about the 20-page limit?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were talking, I wasn't sure if you're talking about file size or 20-page limit.
Well, I have more than 20 students per class and I did so many Jamboards. They loved it. I didn't have any free ones left.
so you're saying when you're in
In my Google Classroom, the waffle, where I can choose what I want to do, the Jamboards,
saying you're here, you're saying it caps out
Yeah.
at 20?
it capped out. I wasn't able to create a new one. Or maybe I didn't know how. How would I create a new one?
So you create a new one. When you're here, it's just this plus sign down in the bottom.
Where? Oh, that might have been it.
Yeah.
Do
And
we
then
have an unlimited amount?
So we have all been upgraded this year to I believe Education Plus licenses. And that means an incredibly huge amount of storage. It is limited. We have a couple people who've come up on their limit, but these people are doing things like downloading like entire programming languages that take up huge amounts of space. It's unlikely that your Jamboard will take that up, but if you do feel like you're running out of space or you're having a problem, please send help desk a ticket. We're hoping that staff will not be running into that problem.
Thank you.
Students, however,
Okay.
will have a more limited thing. So if you're doing creating Jamboards, you might
I
run
do.
into that.
I do assign Jamboards. They love them.
Yeah, no, it's a really great tool. And I like getting creative around just like, not just using it as a whiteboard, but trying to think of things like this that make them a little bit different.
Can you change the 20-page limit? Like we have 30 students in a class. Is that possible?
So, okay, so there's a 20-page limit, which means like you can only have 20 boards, but then you're talking about only having 20. I'm sorry. I know there's a limit of how many
Number
boards.
of pages. There's a limit to the number of pages. Like, see how you, I
Yeah,
think it
here.
caps, yeah.
Yeah, I did run into that, and I was running into the issue because I was uploading I uploaded an entire short story, and I would have to break it up into multiple Jamboards because I did run out of space. I think
Okay,
that
so I could use multiple jam. It's really nice when they do the gallery walks and everyone shares and they can see everyone's work.
Mhm.
You know, yeah. Okay, I'll just use multiple boards. Thank you.
Yeah, that's how I do it. And you can think of it as groups too. You know, you could divide it up for the students. You could say group A's Jamboard, group B's Jamboard. We
Yeah.
are run into those limitations, but I think it actually does help too on some level. I always found that when I opened it up to every student, it was really quickly, if there was one student doing something inappropriate, it kind of really tanked the experience for everyone. When I divvied up Jamboards, or like for this activity, I would be projecting this and I'd only have 6 students with computers open at a time when I was doing it in person. They were just watching what 6 students were doing and their computers were away because it was supposed to be a read aloud. And that way I also didn't run into the problem of having all 30 students be in at the same time. And I thought it made better for like a hybrid style. All right, well, in the interest of time, we will hopefully maybe have a little bit of discussion time at the end. I want to jump into the idea of self-guided lessons with Google Quizzes. So here's story time. I was a new teacher and I was giving the Lucy Calkins lessons, which if you've ever used them before, it's a ton of text and there's like, say it in only 5 minutes. And there's like a ton of text that gets like student feedback and things like that. Well, I was working with a very hard to staff school. There was a lot of student conflict, a lot of things that were coming back into my classroom. And the idea of getting a bunch of 7th graders to the rug, listen to me speak, and then also interact and discuss in 5 minutes was almost impossible. And in fact, most of what I had to do was I had to do a very, very careful negotiation of getting students just transitioning off the playground for, not the playground, like the blacktop for lunch into the classroom was taking up a good 20 minutes of my time because they really needed a lot of attention and redirection for the kinds of things that were happening just outside of my classroom. So I did this in a totally regressive mood where I just said, I can't teach. I'm going to just record all my lessons. But then I was starting. So my I do's were all just recording on YouTube. And I would say, come in, watch the YouTube, and then we'll get started. But I was losing if the kids were actually following along. So I started uploading the YouTubes into a Google form, because Google form, you can add YouTubes. So I would do my hook. I would ask a question that I would grade it for 1 point for accountability. I think now I wouldn't even do that. Just having that like stop after like 2 minutes of video, stopping them and asking them a question would start engaging students in a different way than just if I just given them a 20-minute video to watch. Then all of a sudden, new things started to occur to me. I was able to put Juno Diaz's lecture on as part of my mini lesson. One of the big concerns I have is I'm the only white person in my classroom. This was a way that I could have a authority source who is from a different background, a different ethnicity, a different kind of experience that would be engaging some of my students and reflecting, giving them teachers that looked like them, which I knew was really powerful. This was a way that I could do that. So again, all of a sudden giving a lot of variety. I don't need to be the only voice in the room. And then I was able to even take little videos where I use Screencastify to model my writing. And then I would end with up here, since I wanted to make sure there's lots of different abilities to participate, I was able to say, upload a photo of the writing you did today. Lucy Calkins, if you've ever done it, relies a lot on writer's notebooks. A lot of students didn't like typing. They were very slow typers, and they really were frustrated with me that I kept putting things on the computer, which I needed as kind of a management tool. So what I said is, at the end of the lesson, you're able to pull out your phone, take a photograph of your notebook and what you did today, and you're able to add that file to the end. This became such an awesome tool for me. It allowed me to really easily find these later when I was having discussions. And this whole thing that stemmed from this like young teacher, man, like crazy, like, I can't control my classroom, suddenly just developed into whole new ways that I could engage. And it was so fun. And it was really great and engaging setting these up. And then I could spend my entire lesson not lecturing at the front of the room, but I could spend the entire class period meeting with students wherever they were. It was really easy to say like, hey, just pause the lesson for a second. Let me see what's in your notebook. Okay, now you can go back to the lecture, and it was all done. It was all out of the way. It took prep, and it was hard to kind of set up, but for my classroom, it just made everything so much easier and so much more enjoyable. And the entire energy of the classroom came down, and it was one of my better experiences. And then of course, what was really great is that at the end of the day, we would then go over everyone's responses. So we could kind of reflect, and this way all students are being engaged, especially those shy students, and we could really kind of talk about what the class sees, even though some students wouldn't have been willing to raise their hand to say sometimes, right? If I had raised hands, I'd have some kids that say all the time and some kids that say never. We wouldn't have that opportunity to say like, a lot of kids are like, sometimes I see like books with me. You tend to get your extremes with raised hands. So anyways, and all right, so we're gonna go to the self-guided lesson. We are running a little bit, and this is the longest one. So I'm gonna try and ask that you try and move kind of as quickly as possible. You're gonna go camera off and mic off, and you'll go through it. So you're just going to be clicking on this, and you're going to experience this as a learner. Whoops. I was trying it out. And you're going to go through this and thinking of this as not a quiz, but as the whole lesson itself. And you're going to fill this out, and we're going to give 10 minutes. And I'm sorry, I went on a little too long. So it's going to be short, but we'll try and get through it in 10 minutes, and we'll come back as a group in 10 minutes. So I'm going to start a 10-minute timer. And yeah, and then come back for the end of the lesson. So the link is in the chat, UDL self-guided lesson. If you are having trouble doing it on your phone, this is the time to go camera off, mic off, and just switch to another tab and complete the lesson.
Yes, Andrew, there's a question on that first question about your background with UDL.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a topic in the form. That's not to be answered, right?
Right. If you can't see that there's the next place where there's some dots, that's where you're going to answer the question. And just as a part of it, one of the big, really important parts is at the very end, doing the view my responses, or view. Yeah, there's I put it on there. It's something like view my answers is the point, a big part I want to get to, but I'll show what that looks like on mine too. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. So we're over at 11:45. I'm way over. Is that right? Or
It shows it, on the itinerary, it says till 12.
Okay. Sorry, I know what I did where I accidentally wrote the wrong note for myself. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're coming up in the interest of time that I want you to experience anything, if I made some mistakes in setting it up or anything, just clicking on a random button just to move to the next question and keeping that in mind. Don't feel bad. The idea is to try and get through as much of the experience, looking at a video, reading text, as much of it as you can.
What are the goals and what are the barriers?
Oh, perhaps someone is unmuted. Yeah. We have about 2.5 minutes. Again, maybe just trying to see what's there is the best thing to do right now. And making sure you do view the responses when you're done. Right, with our remaining 30 seconds, just trying to find a good spot to kind of stop. Hopefully we just got to. And even though I'm stopping the timer and switching back to the other screen, you can take those last 15 minutes. But I'm just going to kind of start going through really quickly. Whoop, there we go. That's why does Google have the most annoying one, but the easiest to throw up really quickly? So a couple things that I did that I just kind of want to point out is this first graphic as a way to being like, do you know UDL? I did this specifically. I was thinking, how many times have you been in a PD where they're like, what do you know about, and they'd use some jargony term in teaching, and you're like, I don't know anything about that. And they're like, so it's all about, you know, teaching kids with pictures. And you're like, well, I know about teaching kids with pictures, right? So one thing is when you're asking these background questions, giving them something multimedia to look at to determine, well, I know something about that, not just being like, well, maybe I don't know what UDL is, but I certainly know what some of these things are. The video, I want to point out, I chose a 2-minute clip. I did not try and go any longer. Anytime I did really, really long clips, it always worked a lot. The entire lesson did not work as well. So try and keeping it no more than 5 minutes max. Only like 1 5-minute video and lots of 1-minute and 2-minute videos I found works a lot better. And then we have the assessments. I want to point out that this question would be a question I would then have the students come back to later. If you got all the way through the quiz, you know that you got an email with your responses. I would use the email in class. I'd have students open up their emails, go to the discussion question they came up with last week and copy it onto their Socratic seminar notes or whatever it is that I'd be working on. So we're bridging the like physical classroom with the digital classroom as much as possible. I wouldn't always do this where I tried to summarize each section, but one thing I would do is I chunk. When you're using Google quizzes and Google Forms, chunk. Try and make that you can make different sections where you have to go back and next. I try and do as little on each section as possible. It really brings down the anxiety of the student to see one question at a time than to have so many and be like, I'd have these giant web quests when I first started out, and I'd have students be like, oh my God, I have to answer all of these things. And I found that it was always so much better if I made it really quick and simple. And there's now auto saving on Google Forms, which is really great. So if a student is signed in, they can come back to it the next day and their form will have been saved in place. So that's a cool new thing that Google Forms does that makes this a lot easier. And then, so I wanted to show that you could upload a file. That's, I think, a really great technique to add different kinds of representation. They could upload a Google Drive. They could go find a link to something. You could say, you know, what is a movie that has similar themes? Find me a trailer on YouTube and drop it in. So hopefully some people did that. And then I like to do reflection at the end, just to have them check in, and I can then get my own feedback. And we'll go over that at the very end because that'll be our last one if we have time for it. But what I really wanted to make sure you guys saw was this view score button. So this is something that I had to really work to explain to students how to use this, because they would not click on view score frequently on their own. But we would go through, and one of the things I would really try and do is make sure I give the feedback and fill that out in Google Quizzes. If you've used Google Quizzes and you go to the settings section, you'll know that there's lots of areas to include different types of feedback. So here's a feedback. This feedback is actually dependent on if they got it right or wrong. So they would get a different feedback message if they had gotten it right. But since they got one wrong, I just identified what the correct answers were. And then this is a fun one. This is like my thing, is that you can even do video feedback, again, to meet those learners who are maybe having trouble with verbal feedback. So
thanks for trying to get your best answer for that. Why don't you look back at your answer and compare it to what I would consider to be a 4-point answer? It would read something like, formative assessment provides ongoing feedback to both educators and students.
And of course, the reason why that's a little animated unicorn is because I was making that late last night and I did not like how I looked, and I didn't want to turn on the lights and disturb my partner who was sleeping across the way. So this is a cool tool called Adobe Animate. This is a little bonus tool. And if you want to drop that in, you just record your voice and it automatically animates a little character to talk for you.
What's
Really
it called again?
Adobe Animate. And
Thank you. I love it.
Yeah. Or Animate from Audio. I don't, yeah, Kathleen, the link is in the moderator notes. Really great for when you're not ready to show your screen. And it goes pretty fast. So that's a little sneak tool. And that one I wanted to show. And so that is the lesson. Now, I am so sorry. We are coming up so close to the end of time that I'm unable to do that. And I'm unable to go through Google Forms for assessment, but I really want to emphasize the idea of class reflection as a tool. And this is the idea that don't gatekeep the results of your Google Forms when you ask students how the class is going. Use this so making sure that you post these answers, and at the end of the day or the end of the unit or at different times, I would project all the answers I got on my quizzes, on my feedback forms about my class. It took a lot of soul searching to be vulnerable, because middle schoolers can be mean, man, and they were not shy to write things in the notes. But actually, some of the most inappropriate things led to these really interesting discussions where I'd have some students that I didn't even think liked me say it's not really fair to say that to Mr. Piper. And I'm not even sure it's going to be something he can change for the next lesson if we just talk to him like that. It was a really cool lesson. But so after you do your form, after you check in, looking at it as a class. And that was kind of my idea of how to make forms a little bit different, is making them student facing. And here is just a little bit of a note about checkbox scales and grids become bar graphs, multiple choice becomes pie charts, and text to paragraph becomes these anonymous boxes, which can be really helpful. And one of the number one things when I did this, all the students say, there are too many noisy students in this class and those anonymous boxes. And man, did that do all my work for me. It was no longer Mr. Piper saying, you know, hey, everyone be quiet. It was like, remember, some of our learners have asked that we as a class get a little more quiet. And it was great that it didn't have to be Mr. Piper says be quiet. So we're not gonna be able to get to that due to me going over time. There's some information in here on practice sets that you can review later. And if you are using practice sets, please contact me. I'd love to work with you and see how we can bring them to SFUSD on a larger scale. Going really fast. And do closing moves, I'm sorry. And here's my contact info. Thank you guys so much. This is so exciting that I just couldn't stop talking about it. All right, bye.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Shannon, if you are interested in looking at practice sets, definitely email me and we can set up like a one-on-one session and start breaking it open, but it will be more of a co-learning kind of situation. I'd be happy to do it. Oh, thank you so much, Martha. That means a lot. It was a really fun one to put together, and I should have made this one of the longer workshop ones. All right. Well, I am going to end this because I don't want people hanging around when they should be going out to lunch, but I will see you at the afternoon keynote. Have a great day, everyone.